Hi there, Max here from Max's Cake Studio. So today I'm going to show you how I make a Minion cake topper. So the tools and equipment you'll need are some corn flour, some water, a circle cutter, a piping nozzle with a large round hole at the end, a small rolling pin, a palette knife, a sharp knife, an X-Acto knife for detailed cutting out, a veining tool, and this is my Wilton stitching tool, a paintbrush, a cocktail stick, some yellow, blue, black, grey, white and brown fondant. So first of all, take a ball of yellow fondant, shape it into the Minion body shape. Now I usually like to let them set for 3 or 4 nights just to make it easier to work on them. So shape it and roll it into the shape of the Minion body, and it should be arched over on the top for the head and will look something like that. And then take some blue fondant and roll it out large enough for your circle cutter, and then take your circle cutter and cut out a circle of fondant, remove the excess, and then turn over the body of the Minion and place the blue on the bottom. So what you're doing here is you're getting the bottom of the dungarees, but you're not sticking it down yet until you've got the right shape. So just push it on and push it down, and then once you've got it on, just take the edge of your sharp knife and trim it all the way around so it's in a straight line. Now the dungarees don't need to be too high up the body because you've got to allow for the front of the dungarees, the mouth and the goggle at the top. So just keep trimming all the way around till it's all trimmed off, and smooth down any edges, and then put in some water and on the underneath, and then turn it over and stick it down and smooth it down all the way around, front and back. And if you've got any jaggedy edges, just take your veining tool and smooth them off. And then take a little piece of blue fondant, and this is what you're going to use for the front of the dungarees. So just put the piece of blue fondant near the Minion body, and just using your eye line, just cut out an oblong shape which is wide enough and long enough for the front of the dungarees. And then check against the Minion that it is the right size. It just needs to curl just under at the bottom and go slightly up at the front, but not too high. And once it's the right shape, trim the corners to make it look like the dungarees. Smooth down the edges with your fingers, and then using a little bit of water, just stick the front of the dungarees on and move it into shape so it looks right. And that's where you need to allow enough space for the mouth and for the goggle at the top in the centre. And then take a little piece of blue fondant, roll it out again fairly thin, and this is what you're going to use for the back of the dungarees. So turn the Minion round, and again using your eye line, just cut out the back piece of the dungarees and stick it on using a little bit of water, and smooth it and shape it and make sure the edges are nice and smooth. And then take a sausage of blue fondant and roll it out, and this is what you're going to use for the straps. So when you've rolled it out, just measure it against the side of the body to make sure it's the right length, and then trim at both ends, and then trim down one side, cutting off a fairly thin strip, and that strip will then be cut in half, and that will give you the right thickness for the dungaree straps. Again, check to make sure they are the right length before you stick them on. and then using a little bit of water, stick from the front to the back. So if they are too long, you can trim off at the back. Do the same for the other side, starting at the front and going to the back. And it should look something like that. Just make sure your straps are the same height. And then take your stitching tool and use this to stitch all the way around the edges of the dungarees. Do the top side and the bottom side of each strap as well. Trying to keep it in a straight line as you possibly can. Do the front of the dungarees all the way around the edges and across the bottom, and then round the top edge of the dungarees on the left and the right. And the stitching really does bring the dungarees to life and should look like that. And then take a very small piece of blue fondant and cut out a square, and this will be stuck on for the pocket on the front of the dungarees. And just use the edge of your knife to straighten the edges of it and put your stitch in. And now take a small piece of grey fondant and just flatten it down into a circle shape, taking the end of your piping nozzle and just cut out the centre of it. Get rid of the grey from the piping nozzle, turn over the goggle and cut it again, and this should give you the right shape. And then just check it against the body of the Minion. And then take a small piece of white fondant, squash it down into a circle shape big enough to go underneath the goggle, and just check the goggle and the white do go together. And then take a little piece of brown fondant, again squash it down into a circle shape and stick it onto the white fondant at the bottom for the eye. And then take a smaller piece of black fondant, squash that down, and using a little bit of water, stick that onto the brown. And then take a tiny piece of white fondant. If it is too big, just trim it down. And then use the white fondant for the eye by placing it at the very bottom so it looks like the Minion is looking down. And then get the eye and stick it on to the top of the Minion at the very top, making sure the white is at the bottom, looking down. If it's moved out of shape when you stick it on, just use the edge of your knife to put it back in shape, and then put water on one side of the goggle and stick it on over the top of the eye. And then using the end of your palette knife just to put it back into a circle shape all the way around, giving it back its shape, and so you can see the white of the eye. Then take a little bit of grey, make it into 2 pellet sizes, and these are going to be used for the edge of the goggles that hold the goggle strap. Stick them on, and then using your veining tool, just make an indentation on each side, giving it a more realistic look. And then take your cocktail stick and put an indentation of where you want the mouth to go. And then take some black fondant, roll it into a strip, and this is what you're going to use for the mouth. And then take a little bit of water, place it over the indentation for the mouth, measure the black against it. Once it's the right size, just stick it on with some water and using the end of your paintbrush to push it into place. And then take a strip of black fondant, and this is what you're going to use for the goggle strap. So roll it out till it's long enough, and then get some water, and from one side to the other all the way around the Minion, just put some water on and stick on the goggle strap and break it off when it reaches the other side. Then flatten it down so it looks more like a strap than a round sausage. Take your veining tool and run it all the way around and then back again, so you get a deep indentation for the goggle strap. It should look something like that. And then you take a very small piece of black fondant, squash it into a circle and stick it onto the front of the pocket. And then using your veining tool, just put a line in one side of it. And then get a sausage of black fondant and make 2 little small circles, and these are used for the buttons, and just stick them on to the front, and then using your veining tool put 4 buttonholes in. And now you're going to make the hair. So on this one I'm going to give it 5 strands of hair, so just cut 5 little pieces of black fondant, and then roll each piece and squash it at the bottom, ready to be stuck onto the top of the head for the hair strands. And then using a little bit of water, stick them on. You can use edible glue here if you like, just for extra security, but for today I'm using a little bit of water. You will find sometimes they will want to slide off. Just take them off, reshape them, pop them back on again. And then it's looking something like this. Looks really good now it's got its hair. And then take a sausage of black fondant, cut it in half, and this is what you're going to make the hands from. So make it rounded at one end and then thinly tapered at the other, and then take your sharp knife and just cut 2 pieces into it so that you've got three digits, let's say, for the hands, and then using your fingers just to smooth them down, and they should look something like that. Little hands. And then take some yellow fondant for the arms, roll it into a strip, fairly thin of the Minion arms, so you don't need too much. Cut it in half and then taper it down at one end, and then bend it at the elbow. Check it for size against the body, and once it's the right size, stick it on using a little bit of water. And then get one of the hands, stick that over the very end of the arm onto the top dungaree strap, and then using your veining tool just to reshape it back into shape. Do the same with the other arm. Again, tapering it down, bending it at the elbow, check for size, stick it on, and then stick on the hand, and just push it down and into place, and put that further down onto the bottom of the dungarees rather than the strap, just to make it look nice. And there you have your lovely, fabulous Minion cake topper. I do hope you found this tutorial helpful and useful, and thank you very much for watching. If you have enjoyed this video, do subscribe